Well, I want to take a moment here to talk about something that I talked a little bit about on today's program, and that is the background or the ideology of Black Lives Matter. So a couple things on this. Number one, yes, it's true. That statement on its face, Black Lives Matter, absolutely true, absolutely the case. Just like it's also true, forget about all the connotations and the meanings and the interpretations and the emotions involved. It's also true that all lives matter. But there's more to this movement than simply just talking about a particular statement like that. There's a larger desire or a objective that's set forth by this organization. And so I want to play for you a soundbite from one of the 3 Black Lives Matter founders. Her name is Patrisse Cullors. The other 2 founders, one is named Alicia Garza. The other is named Opal Tometi. I apologize if I'm not pronouncing that correctly. I've just read these names. I've not actually heard them pronounced on any newscast or anything. But anyway, I want to play this because what happens is those who disagree with what I'm about to play for you, which is awful to talk about the ideology of this movement, what it's rooted in. For those of us that disagree with this, the racial components of this are designed to silence us so as to allow for this narrative to be a carrier for the ideology that Ms. Cullors is outlining or discussing here. So with that being said, I'm going to actually do some fancy editing here. Let's see if I can pull this off. Nope, didn't do that right. Let's try this again. Do some fancy editing here. Poof, look at that. And so we're going to play this little soundbite. She's being interviewed. Now, it's going to look like at the beginning of this video that she's actually talking. She's talking. This is B-roll footage. This isn't like her talking here on the screen right now. I mean, it'll go back to the screenshot of her facing the camera in this interview, which I think is called therealnews.com. But anyway, I want you to hear this, and I want to talk about this.
I think of a lot of things. The first thing I think is that we actually do have an ideological frame. Myself and Alicia in particular are trained organizers. We are trained Marxists. We are super versed on sort of ideological theories. And I think that what we really try to do is build a movement that could be utilized by many, many Black folk.
Okay, so she says that she is a trained Marxist. And not only that, out of the 3 founders of Black Lives Matter, Alicia Garza, Patrisse Cullors, who is there in that particular interview, and Opal Tometi, Opal notwithstanding, the other 2 are apparently trained Marxists, according to what she is saying here in this interview. So what happened, and this happens not just with this movement, right? So we have something that most Americans can get, all Americans, other than the fringe, right? The fringe base or the fringe of society, not the base, the fringe. Folks can get behind the general idea here, which is all lives matter. Again, take away the emotion, or I'm not trying to take away from the movement at the moment. I'm just simply stating a truth. All lives matter, period. Black lives matter, period, as well. And most people can get behind this, the vast, vast, vast majority. But so they use this as a vehicle to actually, I think, to confuse people, to conflate things. Now we've got businesses. We got businesses that are actually donating money. I forget which business it was, but donating a large amount of money to Black Lives Matter. And it's a Marxist-led organization, folks. Let that sink in. Marxism is communism. Marxism killed more people in the 20th century, killed more than approximately 100 million people killed by their governments. Most of those were Marxist governments, whether they were the Soviets, the Castro regime in Cuba, whether they were the Chinese communists. But these folks, these governments killed folks for no reason, for disagreeing with them, for believing in God, for exercising their God-given right to free speech, for just politically being on the other side of an issue. And these folks, 100 million approximately, killed by their own governments. And that is the ideology that is fueling, or that is being, Black Lives Matter is being fueled by that movement, by that ideology. And that, my friends, is a terrifying thing, because you're not allowed to criticize Black Lives Matter. In fact, right now, everyone out there is coming out and saying we support Black Lives Matter, or something that Black Lives Matter stands for. But underneath all of this, we have this movement towards Marxism, folks. I mean, back in the look, I'm not saying we should go back to McCarthyism, but there was a time when saying you were a Marxist, a Leninist, a communist was bad politically. Now folks are becoming more and more open, more and more free to share these ideas. Marxism is the antithesis of what we have in this nation. Marxism is the opposite of what it means to be free, to have liberty. It's the opposite of what our Constitution set forth. The ideas of the individual being the smallest minority group, it is the individual. And so those things are completely done away with in communism and Marxism. And you look only to the mass, to the group, to the whole, to the sum of all the individual parts, and you can do whatever you want effectively to the individual components, the individual people that make up that larger collective group, if the leader, the benevolent dictator, so desires. And this has happened throughout history. It's a dangerous ideology. It has more blood on its hands than anything I can tell you, and yet capitalism is somehow blamed for the world's ills. Capitalism has done more to lift people out of poverty than anything else, than communism could have ever dreamed of. Simply stating it in your platform, but doing nothing to help it. In fact, harming the people that you tell us you're actually trying to help. That's what Marxism is. And so this movement, she just told us, is a vehicle to advance Marxist ideology. Think about that. And you think about how this has become widely accepted. You think about how the NFL has embraced it through Colin Kaepernick, other players, even the NFL itself now becoming more and more open to this. They're telling us they're Marxists, right? And you think about that. You think about, does that change this whole anthem discussion, right? With the hatred that Marxists have for this country is rooted deeply. It is foundational and fundamental. This is something that that is deeply held within them. They have a deep hatred. They want a total eradication of this country. They want this country to be destroyed as founded. They want something else established in its place, communism, of course, which will fail miserably as the utopia that we're told. It's supposed to save us all and give us all this hope and equality, but it does nothing but bring death and destruction and poverty. And yet this is what we're told is the ideological framework of Black Lives Matter. I just think more people need to know this. And so I wanted to take a moment to talk about that today. It's an important thing. So thank you for listening. As always, subscribe to this channel just by clicking subscribe on this page. And guys, thank you for listening so much. Have a great day.